Senators are sparring over whether or not to eliminate the filibuster. If removed, Democrats would be able to pass bills with a simple majority and without any Republican votes. Currently, many of the bills that pass the House are stalled in the Senate because of a rule requiring legislation to attract 60 votes before it can pass. In an interview Wednesday, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders says he wants to see the filibuster eliminated.
I happen to think that at the end of the day, we have to end the filibuster. I think that the crises facing the American people are of such magnitude that we need to act. And it is unacceptable that when the American people want to do something like raising the minimum wage or dealing with health care or dealing with education, et cetera, or demanding that the wealthy stop paying their fair share of taxes, it is just unfair and undemocratic for a minority of the Senate to prevent what the majority of people want in this country, in the House and in the Senate.
For more on this, I want to bring in Eric Levitz. He's a senior writer for New York Magazine's Intelligencer. Eric, welcome. Great to have you with us. So explain to us how eliminating or just reforming the filibuster would work.
Sure. Well, so right now, it's pretty clear that there's just not going to be sufficient Democratic support for completely eliminating the legislative filibuster, at least barring some extraordinary new events. What there seems to be progress towards, at least with the president's recent, President Biden in a recent interview endorsed the restoration of a talking filibuster, or it's not clear exactly what he's talking about in terms of details, but the basic idea is reforming the filibuster so that the onus is on the minority instead of on the majority. Right now, you need 60 votes in the Senate to end debate and proceed to a majority vote on legislation. That's what the filibuster is at present. What's being talked about is switching so that the onus is on the minority to always have 40 votes to continue debate. There's lots of different technical details for how this could work, but one way to do this would be to establish a present and voting standard. So instead of needing 60 votes to end debate, you could have a situation where you just need, 2/3 or 3/5 of the senators in the room at that time to end debate. What this would mean in practice is that, after an extended period of Republican speeches trying to delay, Democrats could possibly rush to the Senate at 2 a.m. in the morning, hold a vote when Republicans aren't there, and then move the bill forward. Again, the details of exactly what the reform would be like is not clear, but there are a bunch of different ways that you could tweak the rules, including restoring rules that used to be in place in the 70s, such that the filibuster would be less of an obstacle, even if it was still technically there.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting hearing Bernie Sanders' argument for eliminating the filibuster because, you can make the argument that if the House more accurately represents the American people because of the fact that it more, takes into account population as opposed to the Senate, legislation that keeps passing the House and dying in the Senate, might not ultimately represent the will of most of the American people. You can clearly make that argument from the Democratic perspective. What is the Republicans' argument for either keeping or eliminating the filibuster?
Yeah, so, the Republican argument for keeping the filibuster is that, this basically forces some measure of, basically we have a really diverse country, really ideologically polarized. People have different priorities, and keeping the union together requires having this mechanism that forces, if you're going to make a major law, a major policy change, then you're going to need to have at least some bipartisan buy-in. I find this argument personally not that compelling, both because of the reason that you stated. The Senate's allocation of representation is really, really uneven. So the average U.S. state is about nearly 7 points more Republican than the nation as a whole. And so there's just an inherent sort of skew with rural areas that tend to be more conservative being wildly overrepresented because we have a situation where California has as many representatives in the chamber as Wyoming does, despite the fact that California has 68 times more people. So there's a Democratic argument, and then there's just the other fact that because of budget reconciliation, this mechanism that allows certain kinds of laws to be passed with just a majority, in practice, we have seen laws that lacked popular support, major laws be passed, such as the Trump tax cuts in 2017, which passed just with Republican votes, and despite pretty significant public opposition according to polls. So I don't think the filibuster does what Republicans say it does, but their argument is that it promotes bipartisanship.
And so earlier this month, you wrote an article called How Dems Can Turn Filibuster Reform into the Moderate Option. Explain how they could do that.
Yeah, so one thing that article notes is that right now we have this, extremely popular COVID relief bill that just passed, the American Rescue Plan, that has about 70% public approval. Some provisions in that plan that are maybe the most popular or could potentially become so, such as the monthly child payments, which are still sort of, I think, being worked out. But basically, when this bill is fully operational, almost all families in the United States will receive a monthly check of $250 for every kid they have above age 6, and $300 for below that. Once you have a situation where you have welfare benefits in place, and you have every family in the country doing their monthly budgeting while taking account of this child benefit they've gotten used to, that child benefit is right now scheduled to expire after a year. So it's possible that we're going to find, Democrats are going to find themselves in a situation where if Republicans obstruct the extension of the child credit, then the choice is going to be between either reducing every family's monthly income by a significant amount or abolishing the filibuster to extend that. In which case, moderates might conclude that actually the centrist, the more moderate option here is to not take benefits away from their constituents, but instead to change the procedural rules of the Senate. There also could be a forcing mechanism through voting rights legislation, which recently passed the House, which is such a top priority for the Democratic Party, that it could also make it seem as though the filibuster, altering it at least, is actually the more comfortable option even for moderates.
Well, surely this will not be the last we're hearing about the filibuster. Something tells me that something's going to happen with it one way or the other. All right. Well, Eric Levitz, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you.